Morning, everybody. How many of you guys include in your Christmas traditions a nativity scene somewhere in your house? Raise your hands. We had one growing up. The figurines on it they had to have been hand painted or painted by the worst machine in China that you've ever seen, because the faces were all kind of distorted and it didn't look quite right. I remember, and your nativity scene is probably like this, the Magi. You guys know the wise men. They came, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And the wise men usually had a funny hat on. How many of you guys, your nativity scene, the wise man has a funny hat on, maybe weird clothes that don't quite match everybody else, and they're always giving a gift to Jesus. That's kind of your clue that these guys are the Magi. When I was a kid, the Magi were prime targets to be kidnapped by young Brian Rotert and replaced with a He-Man figurine, just waiting to see how long it took my mom to notice. And I'll tell you, we made it to Christmas a couple of years before she noticed that He-Man was a part of the nativity scene, and I'm kind of proud of that, to be honest. Nativity scenes are a pretty common tradition, and I like it because they're usually very symbolic. Like we just said, the wise men have different clothes to kind of symbol they're from out of town. The shepherds that are there always have like a shepherd's cane. And all of this is designed to teach us something about the Christmas story. So today we're going to start the Christmas season, which we lost a week. Did everybody notice? Because Thanksgiving was so late, Christmas just is here all of a sudden. And I'm very thankful to a group of wonderful volunteers that came and decorated the building and the auditorium for Christmas, because that meant that I didn't have to come in and do that. So thank you to you volunteers for coming in and do that. Everything looks really good. So when we look at the Magi today, I'm going to be real honest with you. We don't know very much about them from the Bible. A lot of what we know about the Magi comes from tradition. Today I'm going to try and exclusively focus on what we actually learn in the Bible about the Magi, and I'm going to highlight some things that you think you know about the Magi that you probably don't actually know about that. But I need everybody to open their Bibles up to Matthew chapter 2. That's where we get most of the information about them. Matthew chapter 2, we're going to read from the very beginning. It is going to be up on the screen, so you can follow along up there if you'd like. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem of Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means last among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So we are looking at a story that happens right after Jesus' birth. The word Magi means priest, kind of, but it means not an Israelite priest, not a Jewish priest. It means a foreign priest. It's a word probably you could say like a religious leader. The Bible tells us they came from the east, but since Jerusalem is already east to us, all that we know is they came from easter of Jerusalem. More east. What's the word? More east, right? Not Easter. That's another word altogether. They come from more east from us than Jerusalem is. And we don't know where they came from. It just says east. That's all it says. When I was researching the Magi and trying to get some kind of context for what it was, I was amazed at how much has just sort of been passed down through tradition, the history that we have. How many Magi were there? Hold up the number of fingers. How many were there? We have no idea. We know that they brought 3 gifts, but we don't know how many there were. We don't know really where they came from other than east. I thought it was really interesting that some traditions give names to these guys. I had never heard that before, but maybe some of you come from a background where you know these guys' names. I didn't find that anywhere, but that started and it passed down throughout religious history. It's not that I don't think any of these details are wrong or shouldn't have been added, but I kind of wonder, well, why did we add stuff that's not there? I think that's a pretty important thing to stick to. So they show up in Jerusalem, and they ask to talk to the leader, and they say, hey, we found a star in the sky. So these guys are more than just religious leaders. They have to be some kind of scientists because they noticed that there was a new star in the sky. And they drew the conclusion that that meant that there was a new leader, and they wanted to come and worship that new leader. These guys are not Jewish. They're completely pagan people, and they see a star and think, I think that Israel has a new king. We should go check out who that is. You guys remember how the shepherds found out about Jesus, right? Angels appeared in the sky, and they were all totally freaked out and scared, and they said, we want to go see Jesus. That's how the shepherds found out. We don't know about any angels that talked to the Magi. They saw a star, and they decided they want to go see. I think that is pretty miraculous in and of itself. How many of you all would even notice if there was a brand new star in the sky? I would not. From my view in Rockford, Illinois, I get to see about 20 stars, right? Tom and Kay live in the country. Would you guys notice if there was a new star that appeared in the sky that hadn't been there before? Brian Beck. You guys know this about Brian Beck? He does astrophotography. It's like a hobby of his. He has these telescopes that are huge, and they're connected to his computer, and he types in, like, I want to see, I don't know, name something like Pluto or whatever, and his telescope points to Pluto, and he takes pictures of things that are so dark we can't even see them with our eyes, and he has to take like 20 pictures in a row and paste them all together just so we can even see what the telescope is pointed at. And then he comes into my office and he says, look what I did this weekend, and I go, oh, like, that's amazing. Like, how did you get a picture of that nebula or that, galaxy or, who knows what it is? But I bet you Brian Beck, in all of his astrophotography world, would not notice a brand new star. There's too many of them. But somehow, the Magi noticed a new star, and that prompted them, hey, it's time to go. We need to figure out why this star existed. Let's follow it. I don't know. I kind of thought, well, maybe they saw a comet that God put there and made those Magi notice and say, hey, let's go on a trip to Jerusalem and see what's going on. I don't know. But they saw something, and that led them to make a huge trip. And I think this is one of the things I really struggled with, because the thing that we notice most about the Magi is they brought 3 gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But I think probably the bigger gift, the more costly gift, was the trip that they took. They did not Uber to the manger, right? They were on foot. What's the most that you can cover a day on foot? 20 miles, maybe, if you're pushing it. If you're on a camel, I looked this up because I don't know how fast a camel goes, but if you take a camel, you could maybe double that and do 40 miles a day. But there are 100 things that would make this trip go slower than that. You need provisions for the trip. If you're traveling with valuable gifts like the Magi were, you better have a security detail that's following you. So it's not just 3 guys. We don't really know that there's 3, I know. But it's not just these Magi traveling all by themselves with a brick of gold under their arm, right? There's a whole entourage of people that has to go with them. And if you might as well not take the main roads to get to Jerusalem because you're carrying all this valuable stuff. Like, I don't know if they took back roads to try and hide. And all of this undertaking, this entourage of people going to see Jesus, is because these guys saw a new star in the sky and they wanted to check it out. And seeing that star made them want to follow it. And they just said, we want to be a part of whatever is going on. I think that is more of a sacrifice than the gifts that they brought. It's pretty logical. They went to Jerusalem. It's the capital city. It's where you would be most likely to find out news about a new king. Visiting politicians and rulers in our day go to Washington, D.C., because that's where they go to meet other rulers and politicians. And they find Herod, and they go up to King Herod and say, oh, hey, we heard the wonderful news. The Israelites, the people that you're managing, they have a brand new king. Isn't that exciting? And these Magi, who are pagan, not Israelites, say to King Herod, we would really like to worship that new king. This is very bad news for Herod, because kings do not want to share power. And so the minute Herod finds out, the Israelites have a brand new king that was born, Herod is on full alert. I think it was also interesting, I never noticed this detail before. It says the inhabitants of Jerusalem were nervous and not sure what was going on, because if the king ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right? If the king is nervous about a new ruler that's going to take over, then the people of Jerusalem are also nervous. They know that trouble is brewing in their future. And then we come to another surprise. I think it's verse 3 or 4. Herod asks to speak to the Israelite chief. I'm reading this from my notes because it doesn't make any sense. Herod asked to speak to the Israelite chief priests and teachers and ask them where the Messiah was to be born. There is so much to unpack in that one little sentence. Herod, the pagan king, who is informed by 3 pagan priests about a new Jewish king, asks the Jewish leaders, religious leaders, where it was prophesied that the Messiah would be born. None of that makes any sense. 3 pagan guys ask another pagan guy, hey, we heard the Israelites have a king, go ask your religious dudes. And then they say, hey, where's the Messiah prophesied about? Where is he supposed to be born? None of that adds up to any sense. Do you guys want to understand what I'm saying? Pagan people are asking about the Messiah, and they know they can't ask other pagan people, so they ask Israelites to interpret their texts. I think it's like, Herod's like, I don't think that my advisors are really going to have input on this idea, right? They don't have a Messiah. The Israelites have a Messiah. So he goes and gets the Jewish leaders, and you can picture these Israelite guys opening up their scrolls, and they find a verse from the book of Micah that totally tells where the Messiah was supposed to be born. In Bethlehem. We all know that because we're probably going to sing songs about that city later on this month. Herod is an evil guy. We know the later part of the story about why he's so evil. He gets the Magi to tell them, hey, where's this star again? Can you show it to me? And then he does some math, evil, like scheming math, so that he can figure out where the Messiah would be born and when. And we know that what the incredible evil thing that he's about to do is, don't we? But he tells the Magi, hey, listen, I also would love to go and worship this Messiah that you have traveled to go see. So let me know when you get there. Send me a text, and I'll join you. I would love to be a part of this worship service. The Magi's head out. They keep following the star. They get to Bethlehem, and they find Jesus in where? Did you notice? In a manger? No, in a house. Okay, so time has passed. Thankfully, Joseph found an inn that poor Mary could be with the baby, right? They went somewhere else. So the next time you go home to grandma's nativity scene, you have to wreck the whole thing because the Magi shouldn't be there, right? So you have to take the Magi, hide them somewhere else because by the time Jesus was born, they are still on the way, okay? Don't do that. It's going to make your grandma upset, but you could because that would be more accurate. And when they arrive, they present Mary with the gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, one of the gifts was gold. What do you give the creator of the universe who has everything, right? Gold. It seems like an odd gift to give a baby, right? Those of us who know the story know that Mary and Joseph are about to escape. Why? Because Herod is about to kill everybody. So they head to Egypt. And one of the things that everybody needs when they're taking a trip that they weren't planning on is money. You got to have money for the journey. Like, they are going to live in a foreign country until Herod dies. Joseph and Mary don't have a lot of money to throw around. Like, we know from the scripture that they were a very poor couple, and they're now traveling with a baby, and they have to hightail it to a different country to protect that baby. And gold would come in really handy in that situation. That's an interesting gift. Frankincense is just a fancy word for a kind of incense, and it was used during worship. Even the Israelites used frankincense during parts of their worship. There's a good chance you've smelled frankincense. If you've ever been a part of a Catholic Mass, they often use frankincense when they burn incense in their services. And then we have myrrh. Myrrh is another smelly thing, right, that people burn. Myrrh is one of the spices that they would often use to prepare a body for burial. What a lovely gift for a newborn, right? But do you think it's significant? These three gifts might be meaningful. Gold for the journey, frankincense because they came to worship Jesus, and myrrh because baby Jesus is connected to Jesus on the cross. It's a hard thing to think about. Jim even said that in his communion meditation. They are inseparable. And somehow these Magi knew just what gifts they needed to bring Jesus. So, in your nativity scene that you set up or have already set up this year, when you get out the Magi and they're holding their little boxes of whatever it is that they have, remember that that's probably not the most significant sacrifice that they made. I don't have a way of assigning a dollar amount to what they gave, but I have to think that pagan kings coming to worship at the feet of baby Jesus is a far greater sacrifice. The Bible doesn't say anything about their faith. It doesn't say that they, what role they played in their pagan temples. But they came from a place where no one followed God. They came from a place that probably no one even knew about God. And their title hints that they were some kind of a leader. They see a star in the sky, and they decide to worship a God that they have never even heard of. That meeting with Herod, that could have been dangerous, right? Hey, I'm here to see this foreign king, off with their heads, right? We're going to talk about that. And at a great sacrifice, they make the journey to go and worship Jesus. They showed just how all in they were with their act of worship. So we're about to head into Christmas. Oh, it's here. Who am I kidding? I need to start shopping for something, right? Several weeks back, Lori Cruden, our preschool director, came to the staff and said, hey, I got this idea. And she had us, I have it. She had us read this book called The Sparkle Box. You guys ever heard of this book? The Sparkle Box. I'm going to summarize it really quick. It's a book about this family that they have this very special box that's under the tree. It's like a sparkly box. That's where the title came from, I think. It's wrapped in this sparkly wrapping paper, and the child notices this box, and he says, hey, what's this box all about? Like, why is that under there? You can kind of imagine he's thinking, like, that's going to be the best present, and I hope it's for me. And throughout the course of the Christmas season, the family participates in acts of service. They do stuff. They give food to a homeless shelter. I think their dad's office. They pitch money in, and they help people in Africa to dig a well for clean water. The boy gives mittens and a candy bar, I think it was, to a man that he noticed was outside in the freezing cold and didn't have anything on his hands. And then on Christmas morning, they open that sparkle box, and they discover that his parents have recorded all of those acts of service and put it inside the box, like on little slips of paper. And so the sparkle box is a gift for Jesus. Very similar to the Magi. They took this huge trip. They had expensive gifts just for the opportunity to worship baby Jesus. Not King Jesus, not even adult Jesus. They worshiped a baby who was completely unable to reciprocate with any kinds of gifts or favors. Usually when you show up with gifts to the kings for the king, you probably want something in return, right? You're using it to kind of grease the wheels and make sure you get what you want to get. But the Magi had no such guarantee. They bring gifts to a baby whose parents were poor. Mary and Joseph were poor. They couldn't promise any kind of seats on the advisory council of Jesus someday. The Magi went on their way after their worship time, and they are never mentioned again in the Bible. Their worship is simply a sacrifice. They just gave something to Jesus. So this month, we want everyone at Central to be a part of our Christmas Sparkle Box. As a dad, I feel it already. The wave of materialism is about to hit our families. Do you all feel it? I do. The commercials have been ramped up. The ads that you see on social media and the internet about buying this, buying that, things that you didn't even know existed that suddenly I just have to have, right? It is everywhere. And I have tried my whole time as a dad to fight that with everything about me during Christmas time, because it is a tidal wave that you could easily just dive in, and suddenly Christmas is all about gifts and presents. Buy more, spend more. My favorite is save more. That's what some people in my family are very excited about. How could you not buy it? I didn't spend $10, I saved $5, right? You guys ever have that conversation before? Oh, you deserve it, they deserve it, give the very best, on and on it goes. That mentality creeps into our lives. I mean, how many of us in this room really need very much at all, right? There's a sparkly box on stage. Right now, to this week and next week, all the kids in all the classes are making a sparkle box that they are going to take home. And our job as parents is to encourage your family to fill up that box with things that you do as a family to serve others in your community. The big one up here is for us, all of us, to fill up. Starting next week, we're going to have little slips of paper. And anything that you do, you're going to anonymously write on a little piece of paper and slip it in the sparkle box so that we get to see our box fill up over the course of Christmas time. Won't it be sad if it's an empty box by the time we get to Christmas? This is where I turn the screws a little bit. We don't want to let down baby Jesus, right? I want us all to go home today and ask God, how is it that we can serve others? How is it that we can serve like crazy this month? Starting the minute that we walk out of those doors. We need to be a church that's on a mission, yes, to fill up a sparkle box, but also to serve others, because you guys know this, like we're actually serving Jesus when we do that thing. There's about 1 million ways for us to be involved. I kind of brainstormed. I wasn't sure about this, because I was brainstorming, well, how is it that we could serve others? I don't want to give everybody an idea and think, well, that's what I have to do, because we are all uniquely gifted to serve in whatever way we're gifted to. But there's some people that are in here that have the means to bless the socks off of somebody, like financially, to give in a way that doesn't make one bit of financial sense. Some of us in here can give our time in an incredibly sacrificial way. Somebody in here can go to a nursing home today, ask the lady at the front desk for the loneliest person in there that never gets any visitors, and become their new best friend. That would be a way to serve that person, wouldn't it? Somebody in here could go next door to their neighbor's house that's looking a little run down and help them fix things up because they just can't keep up. Maybe somebody in here is going to become the most dependable volunteer at Rock House Kids or the Pregnancy Care Center or the Rockford Rescue Mission. Whatever God lays on your heart today, whether it's one of these things or something that God puts on your heart later, and guys, we have been already praying that he will do just that he will lay stuff on our hearts. We're asking you, help us to give baby Jesus a really nice gift this Christmas. The end of the book of Matthew. So fast forward all the way to almost the end of Jesus' life. There's a teaching that Jesus essentially describes Judgment Day. Ooh, we took a shift there, right? Talking about baby Jesus, now we're talking about Judgment Day. One day, every one of us will be called in front of God himself, and there's going to be a giant sorting process that takes place. And those of us who are faithful to him will head one direction, and those of us who are not will head in the other direction. And the interesting thing is, in that passage, Jesus says that there are going to be people surprised by the side that they get sorted into. How'd I end up in the good side? Or, oh my gosh, what am I doing on the bad side, right? And here's what Jesus says. Then the king will say to those on his right, that's the good side, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." Here's the clincher. "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer. The righteous people are confused. "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Somehow the things that we do for other people, the way that we serve, the way that we in our church fill up a sparkly box on stage, ends up reflecting on where we spend eternity. The genuineness of our faith, whether or not it's a real thing or not, is shown in how we serve others here on earth. In the second part of this teaching, Jesus flips it around, and he says that everything you didn't do for others is like not doing it for Jesus himself. So every time we ignore the need that we see, that we know exists, and do nothing about it, it's like we look at Jesus, whatever he needs, and say, I don't really see anything. And then judgment comes, and we're all sorted into the exact place where we belong. That's a really hard thing, because I, as one of the people, I hope you're with me, I hope I'm on the righteous side, right? I hope Jesus looks at the acts that I give and says, oh, his faith was genuine. It's so interesting to me, because even the righteous people are confused. Wait a minute. I never saw Jesus hungry. I never gave him anything to eat ever. And Jesus says, no, not me, but all my brothers and sisters. Every single person on earth, when you serve them, it's like you're serving me. So, church, I want us to serve until it hurts this Christmas season. Guys, we could all give out of our excess. Do you know what I'm saying? I got $10 in my pocket, and so I give $5. That's giving out of my excess. I didn't need that $5 bill. Is that a good thing? Yeah. Is it a great thing? Probably not. If I have $10 and I give $15, that's giving the way God's kingdom gives to each other. If I have 1 hour and I end up serving an hour and a half, that is giving in a sacrificial way. So this month, help someone who is completely undeserving of your help, who maybe doesn't even want your help. Reach out to people who need it at your own personal expense. Let's make sure that Jesus has an amazing gift from us as a church this Christmas season. I don't know. You think that'll counteract some of the materialism that threatens to flood us this Christmas? You think that that's like the antidote to the commercials that we see on TV or the ads that we see on social media that tell us to buy, consume? I think that it might be. And I think that I want my gift to Jesus this year to equal the Magi's gift, not just the monetary value, but also the sacrifice that they gave to travel a long distance in order to worship Jesus. We have one more song today. We're going to sing that song, and then we've got a little benediction we're going to do at the very ending. What I would like to encourage you to do is if the idea of baby Jesus or even King Jesus or Jesus on the cross is a brand new thing for you, and you've never really stopped to think about all that that means or all that that is involved, and you've realized, I have never worshiped Jesus the way the Magi worshiped Jesus, then could you come just visit with me? I'm not going to embarrass you or make you do a dance or even say anything in front of everybody, but I'd love for today be the day that you begin your relationship with Jesus. Just come visit with me right after the service, and I'd love to talk to you. Next week is the week we start filling up the Sparkle Box. So I'm praying that God has already put something on your mind of a way that you can serve before we walk out this door today. Let's pray together. Father, I'm very thankful for I'm thankful for a kid's book that helped us as a staff realize that we would like our church to be about something different this Christmas season. Father, I pray that you would protect us from the materialism that we see everywhere during this time, and that you would help us to be a very different kind of people this Christmas. Father, that we would be like the Magi, totally sold out, taking a huge trip at our own personal expense so that we could just worship Jesus with our gifts. Father, I pray that starting this very moment we leave today, you would show us someone that is hungry, someone that is thirsty, someone that needs something, someone who's sick, someone who is in prison. Father, that you would just show us one of your children that has a need. And God, I pray that we would meet that need at our own cost, that we would give until it hurts, until it doesn't make sense, that our generosity, this is a scary prayer, Father, but that our generosity would match your generosity. Father, you have given us so much. And I pray that we could do just that this Christmas season. Thank you, Father, for your Son. I pray in his name. Amen.